Hello World Civilization class 106 section 0009. Um, so right now I'm hoping that you all have went from being a little disoriented to switching things up and now getting into the flow of uh, our information and how the work works. So as I'm mentioning, um, or as I mentioned in the discussion, um, I'm not going to assign a paper for this week also. And then after that, we will normally be having discussions and video notes due on Thursdays as a general rule. And Sundays we'll be expecting a paper. Every once in a while, I have a more in-depth discussion that will also be due on Sunday. Okay, that will, and you will always know what is going on by looking in the work for the week on the link at the top of the module. And please, if there's any questions about anything, of course, always contact me and let me know. So, I just want to say a few things. It's looking like the discussions are looking very interesting. And as I pointed out, from now on, if I say that there has to be the readings incorporated in the discussions, if you want to get full points, you've got to do that. Many of you made great contributions, but didn't actually follow the instructions, which were to address some of the contradictory views the scholars had on Zoroastrianism. Or you alluded to it. No, I need you to dig into it. And some of you did a great job of that. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, and that's what's going to keep you getting full points. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So there's a few things that I'm going to say, and we're going to talk. We've switched gears quite a bit. We started with Egypt, then we went to ancient Israel. And those topics you all are more familiar with. I tried to bring up some things that maybe you wouldn't be as familiar with on those topics. And then we went into Persian culture and Zoroastrianism. And I'm seeing all of you say, wow, this is new. But even in the context of ancient Persia, for those of us who grew up in a Jewish or Christian background, and to a lesser extent even a Muslim background, the three cultures that the three civilizations that we just covered still are not that foreign. And we were still talking about biblical concepts in many ways. But now we're switching into ancient India. And everything goes off the rails in terms of historical development. You'll still see a discussion of illustrating maybe certain things that would have been similar or not to Christianity or something like that for illustrative purposes. But for the most part, we're going into a very different way of developing. And if you look at a map, and if you pause and look at the maps, you're noticing that Egypt and ancient Israel and Persia, they're all kind of close to each other, right? And we would have covered ancient Mesopotamia if I would have had you from the beginning. In my other 106 classes, we start with ancient Mesopotamia, so that it all comes together. But India, we start getting into a different set of ideas. Now, what is interesting, I use the word loosely, like I don't know, is that, okay, you'll notice that with Persia, Iran means land of Aryans. And India, we're going to go into the history, and it's a land that's conquered by Aryans. And what is significant about that in modern history is that you have probably all heard the term Aryan in reference to white supremacists, white nationalists, or Nazis. You have the Aryan Brotherhood, and even the Nazi symbol, the swastika. Now, swastikas were actually everywhere. Swastikas are actually spiritual symbols that should not be associated with Nazism. But unfortunately, the Nazis used this symbol, this spiritual symbol that is found, it's still sacred in Hinduism and Buddhism, and you see it through everywhere. When I was in Asia, you see swastikas everywhere, and they're just associated with Buddhism, and in India it would be for Hinduism, but Thailand and Hong Kong, I see them everywhere, and you see them on temples or on Buddhas even. And they often, and the swastika goes with Ganesh too, and the Om symbol. Now, there were also swastikas within Germanic tribes and so forth, but the one that Hitler uses is more or less like, it's done in the opposite direction, but it's like the Far Eastern swastika. So this is a very puzzling thing. Well, there was this notion of a kind of pan-Aryanism, and I discussed this in one of my lectures, that somehow would fantasize the fact that because white Europeans had some distant, long time ago relations to the Indo-European tribes, also known as Aryans and all this kind of stuff like that, and mixing it all up, that we're all associated into the same thing. And you have these, to this day, these kind of pan-Aryan alliance concepts where you have white nationalists that are actually very multicultural and come from backgrounds that you wouldn't expect. It's bizarre. I just thought it'd be something to take note of. Now, I'm posting, along with this video, an article about a white woman, a Greek-French woman, who literally converted to Hinduism and thought Hitler was the avatar of Vishnu. And she's very influential right now on a lot of white nationalists. I mainly wanted you all to get informed about some of these trends, since we're seeing a rise in white nationalism, and for you to see how ancient history gets manipulated in the modern world. So I'm not trying to actually just put a negative spin on Hinduism. I am going to show some things later on in the week that could be interpreted that way. What I'm trying to show is that every ideology, every ancient civilization has a belief system and concepts that can be co-opted and used for something very negative, just as much as it can be positive. And I think that sometimes there's a naivety in our culture. We see everything through the lens of Christianity, mainly, or any of the monotheistic faiths. So some people's negative views about Christianity or positive views have very narrow scope in understanding how religion operates throughout the world and has operated. So let's just do a recap real quick, and then I'm going to finish this announcement. Think about how Egypt, when the pharaohs taught that they were gods, and the Egyptian religion was basically used as a form of type of control, right? In that sense. When you had the Greeks invade and the Ptolemies come and the Serapis cult was created, this idea of mixing Greek and Egyptian religion together to help unify the country is a very clear-cut case of where political elites are coming up with a religion to help their ruling over people. Now, what's interesting is that then that religion took a life of its own, like many of these others. Serapis cults would end up going way beyond Egypt, and may have persisted for up until now, had it not been for Christianity that would later come in and decide that the way that ruling the empire should work is by basically banning all other religions but Christianity. So for Constantine, it was to legalize it, but then for Theodosius, the Roman emperor, he was like, nope, pretty much going to make Christianity the only religion, will allow Jews to exist in a subservient, humiliated state that will help validate the truth of Christianity, and that's how we're going to do it. And then we learned about how Persia did a very different thing, and they showed tolerance. But even there, helping the Jews rebuild the temple, as one of the lecturers pointed out, was helping keep Israel as friendly and as a buffer zone. And if you look, what is similar to all of these methods and people and histories is that the rulers are just finding different ways of ruling people, and religion's getting utilized sometimes in a very tolerant way and not tolerant way. And but here's where I think modern atheists have got it wrong. When they do a critique and say that religion is the cause of all these wars and so forth, we should take note that it's rulers that are often looking about how they can utilize religion to their advantage more than the other way around. Think about that again. It's political elites and the rulers that are looking at how religion can be manipulated to their advantage. Some of the religions that do come to the world are organic, and they come from the bottom up. So Christianity, it seems, really was something more or less organic and comes outside of a political platform. But when rulers saw that with the growth of Christianity, it could be co-opted and brought into empire, it became very much used in that way, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, if you look, every state that runs had a method of ruling, even with Ashoka, and you'll see in that debate we'll have about him. The bottom line is, if you are ruling, you have a police force, a military force, a secret police. You have dungeons and prisons, and all of that to make sure your society is ran in a certain way. And I noticed this, being in Cambodia and Thailand as well, where the king is considered divine. You can't talk bad about the king, or you can go to prison. But then the military government will often try to make it that if you talk about them, it implies you're insulting the king, and then you can get censored that way. So, and that's utilizing, a kind of Buddhist, and in Thailand even mixing up the Hindu, which is a whole other topic, for controlling. So, that's all I really should just say about this for now. Feel free to, I'm always open for any discussions. If any of you want to contact me, I do work tomorrow at my other job, and then I'll be free on Tuesday. If anybody wants to have, call me up or have longer email communications. Excuse me. All right. Have a great night and a good start to your week.